Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Lumière Learning Monday. We are on episode 11, season 4, and my guest today is a remarkable Pranshu Poddar. Pranshu, we discovered you thanks to Ria Nishil, and just so fascinated to learn about your journey up to the point of doing Soul with the Soul. So, welcome and thank you for being our guest.
Thank you so much for having me. I am really glad again. Yes, I'm glad we were able to meet through Ria and Nishil, and this has been so good. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So, I want my guests to know, why are we doing this, as well as all of you. Some of you may be joining here for the first time. So, the Lumiere Learning Monday is a living museum of sorts, where we showcase remarkable individuals, people who have made amazing choices, doing things that are brave and beautiful, be it the non-profit sector. There are people from industry and business. There are artists. We've had sculptors, we've had doctors, but everybody has a story that's unique. And Pranshu here again is going to tell us a little bit about him and his brand and the work that he does around food and the causes that he supports. So, Pranshu, I'm going to be very quiet now, and we're all going to listen to you. And you call yourself, you describe yourself in a as a philomath, multipotentialite. So, tell us what those big words mean.
A philomath is, well, a word I'm trying to use right now because I don't know how really to call myself a polymath. I still see there's a lot of things to do. But
Awesome.
as a child in school, I was always obsessed with polymaths in general. People who have gone beyond one subject matter and tried to study a lot of different things, where Einstein is not really talking about time and its relativity in purely physical senses, but also in a very philosophical way.
Yes.
And it's always contextualized situations that help you define these things. And I feel like the desire to want to understand things from multiple perspectives has always led me to continue to study. And yeah, which is kind of why I'm currently doing like a course in psychology just because I find it interesting right now. And multipotentialite is another way of, and a nicer way to call myself somebody who gets bored of things very easily. It's a way to self pat yourself on the back because, hey, this is me trying to do multiple things and I have potential in all of them rather than accepting the fact out there that, hey, I might get bored very easily. But that's essentially what that would be, which is what has probably led to me also running a food business of sorts. You mentioned individuals who make brave and beautiful decisions, and you also mentioned amazing. I don't know about amazing. I think a lot of people would also would call this brave, beautiful, and slightly a stupid decision, maybe. But I did quit. I have a background in data science and math, and I studied quite formally for that, and I quit my job doing those things and spent a few years trying to understand and explore and figure what I really want to be doing. And here I am cooking and selling food most of the times. And I truly enjoy it. I do think that as much as the decision might seem brave, beautiful, and maybe stupid and maybe amazing, it is something that fulfills me. And I think that's something that a lot of people do say, that when you like something, you want to share this with people. And that is true. I think, like, since I've started cooking food a lot more and trying to get it out there, I feel a need to want to share this with people more than I did when I used to work earlier. The kind of work I do now inspires me more than the work I used to do earlier. And that's a huge part of the process of, I think, trying to figure what I want to be doing the rest of my life, or what I want to be doing with my time currently. And a lot of this ties into the things that, as you said, are core beliefs for me as well. As it's a food business, but it's a completely vegan food business. Everything is plant based. I went vegan when I was in 2018. I was doing my masters, and I was a part of this organization called YAVA, Animal Welfare Association. And there was a viewing for eating animals, a documentary. It's based off of a book as well, and it completely changed my perspective, I think. And that's what happens with a lot of times when you're ignorant to a lot of information like this. you finally have access to it and you realize how out of the loop you are with things like this that actually do happen. And it kind of evolved me towards seeing things in a very different perspective. I was obsessed with cheese, dairy, paneer. I used to eat eggs quite often. And I also overall had a very weird relationship with food. This was around the
Mhm.
time when I also weighed a lot more. I used to weigh around 156 kgs at my highest, but my
Wow.
stable weight has always been around 120 to 140 kgs. So it was
And
coupled
what do
with
you
me.
weigh now?
I haven't checked very recently, but I should be around 80. I'm in the range of 78 to 84. I keep checking here and there.
And what is your height?
6 feet. So
So
I'm at
that's
a
an
very
ideal.
reasonable.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Just going back to the part you talk about polymaths fascinating you. Same for me. Leonardo da Vinci, who it talks about nine intelligences, has been my perpetual fascination. And the multiple intelligences, whether it is the corporalita or intelligence of the body, the intelligence with math, science, uh, the culinary arts, sports, games, trekking. You've been a trekker, so I really think, Pranshu, exploring different spaces and uh, being brave again about doing things that are new, doing things that are different, and most importantly, following what are your passions. Like you're passionate about math, you're passionate about many things that you do. You've been to Yale, you have went on a full scholarship, you won the math Olympiad, you've done so many fascinating things which are not just curiosities, but things where you've really looked at excelling. So, coming to this food part, what is it about the passion? And if we can unpack that a little bit for our viewers, what's that core thing about soul with the soul? What's the soul? Let's just sort
Yeah.
of unpack that for us, please.
Sure. The soul with a soul is another way of me calling myself. So Pranshu is essentially pran, which is soul in Hindi, and soul is shu. So I have always felt like I don't belong, especially going back to math. As you said, different types of intelligences. In schooling days, being able to do math was considered intelligent, nothing else. And I was good at that, so I was considered intelligent or smart purely because of my ability to understand and be able to perform math well. But I was otherwise a very social recluse, and the whole figuring things out and exploring has been a huge part of trying to understand myself as well. And I have often felt like I don't belong, which has led to me just traveling a lot, being on my feet and moving around. I love walking. I love being mobile on my own feet or on a cycle. And that's why the logo also kind of represents bowls, spoons, forks, but it's kind of a cycle because you're trying to be always on the move in some way or the other. There's a continuity to things as well. But this random exploration has kind of led to food journey as well. I remember as a child, I used to go to school in the morning and we had Fiji in the evening. And I would come back home around 10ish p.m. And that was the only time I was allowed to watch TV if I'm eating food. And I would normally just end up watching MasterChef Australia. And it was
Hmm.
always a huge inspiration for me, watching people being able to do such crazy things with such
Hmm.
limited ingredients. The taste tests were really fun. And I have always also seen my mom cooking in the kitchen. And gifting is something I really like. Gifting is a very personal aspect to it. And as a child, when you don't have money, you can't really buy your parents gifts. So for me, being able to make a meal for my mom, making a chocolate mousse, learning how to make a certain recipe and doing it on, say, Mother's Day, was a
Wow.
really exciting part of it. I remember I was in sixth grade or seventh grade, and Subway had opened up, and Subway was a really fun thing at that point of time. Now it's not looked as a fun eating out experience maybe to a lot of people, but we really enjoyed it. And a Subway sandwich wasn't cheap in those days either. Like it was considered a decent price for a meal.
Yeah.
And I remember I went out and just got random leaves, vegetables, and came back home and made my mom a sub basically because she liked these kind of things, new experiences. And I think that has been a passion of sorts. As a family, we're all foodies, and barring my brother probably. But as a family, we're all foodies. Even my brother is a foodie now, more into meat, which he didn't explore earlier. But uh, but I think like the exploration side has led to creating these flavors a lot for me. And then going to college, I went to an engineering college. In Tamil Nadu, we didn't have the best food over there. I really enjoyed gorging on all those dosas, and I'm a huge fan of dosa. But apart from that, the rest of the meals are mostly trying to figure out how to make a lot of things. And in my college, we weren't really allowed to have a induction or anything of that sort. But I was allowed to keep a kettle because I had a tonsillitis issue and a slight cold issue. I used to make pastas in the basically in the kettle, and I have made a grilled cheese sandwich on my iron as well. And it was a lot of like random experimentations like this in undergrad until I think in Bangalore, when I was working for my first startup, I started making a lot of omelets and meals and sandwiches to a point where the entire team of us, there was like 15, 16 people, they would come in the morning, and I am just feeding everybody food. I'm also signing up their salary sheets towards the end of the month, but I'm also feeding them a breakfast meal almost every day. And it went from 5 or 6 people eating in the morning to almost 12, 13 people eating. So for early morning, around an hour and a half, my job for the company was feeding people food. But it brought like a very real essence to it. I think the relationships I build when you feed people food, I think it builds a different connect also. It's a very
Yes.
wholesome kinesthetic pleasure where you see someone enjoying what you've made for them with your hands,
Yeah.
and they're like, taken aback with the flavors. And I
Yeah.
think that has always made me feel happy. Like there's an
So
immense amount of internal happiness that fills me up, I think. And like I associate it with, I'm not an artist in any sense in terms of painting or being able to create things like that, but I think food gives me the feeling of being able to understand what gestalt maybe means, the idea of creating something
nice.
greater than itself. When I'm
Beautiful.
able to work with ingredients and create something on a plate, but the entire experience is only envisioned for me as a reaction to how your face changes while you're biting into it, and
Yeah.
and for me as well. So I think that.
Pranshu, you also are so much a deep believer in sustainability and veganism, right? And there's a lot of myth busting to be done around veganism because I think as Indians, most of us, we eat grain, we kind of have very balanced meals, we eat lots of veggies and fruits. So you want to sort of tell our audience a little bit about what the directions you've taken with a soul, and why do you think that's important. So
Yeah. So there are a lot of myths to be busted with veganism. And as you said, with being Indians, we normally have a very balanced diet. I mean, my most common interaction with a lot of people is, "Oh, you're vegan. It must be difficult to survive," and it's not. Places like India, especially, is very convenient. You can go to a random roadside place and order dal chawal, have an idli dosa almost anywhere, and you are sorted. So it's relatively easy staying vegan, and there are a lot of myths where it has to be expensive or bougie or over the top, but it doesn't really need to be. But with the soul as such, that's what I've been trying to explore. I think there's also within the whole cafe side of vegan food, there's this idea that things don't have great flavor. It's around a healthy meal only. You'll have drier things, there are not as many sauces. But that's again like a whole myth around it because it's not created or curated as well, and it's marketed in a certain way. I think the idea for me has always been the core of my food exploration has to be the flavor has to be top notch almost always. The flavor can never be compromised because at the end of the day, people have food for the first most important feedback, which is flavor and how it feels when you bite
yeah,
into it. But then on top of that comes how it feels within your body. And that's something that veganism in general has a pro. I think a vegan meal in general just feels better while aging into your body. But the flavor is something you cannot compromise on top of that. And apart from that, then comes texture and layers, and there's so many different things you want to be able to do. And it's great working with textures. I think coconut milk is something I have really explored a lot, and it brings such a great texture to almost all your creamy items. It's fun to work with. You can do a lot of different things with it. But that's been a rather fun navigational period. I have traveled while I've been vegan through Vietnam, and again, it was easier than most people would assume it was.
Hmm.
Um, Being able to find peanut-based dishes, being able to find just mushroom broths, uh, it's it's always considered to be difficult for some reason, and I think there is this bias that people do hold, but it's very convenient. I mean, I go to Bangalore and I think I have a dosa every day, and then I make a meal for myself every day. And all you need is veggies from the market. Some lentils are great. You can also blend up. Being vegan also makes you want to try different things. So you end up cooking your lentils and blending them, and you can have a different kind of a paste altogether that you can then stuff into, say, karelas and stir fry them. So you're having lentils that are cooked with some spices, which are then stuffed into a karela, and it no longer tastes as bitter. And then you're having a fun meal around something that you wouldn't imagine. So you're always trying to figure out different ways to work with different things. And when I usually end up traveling, this is kind of what I do. I just live with different friends at their houses, and we just open the kitchen wardrobe and then like, let's see what we have. And it's usually me just cooking a random thing from whatever they have in their wardrobe ingredients, and both of us just sitting and enjoying the meal that's been cooked. And it's, oh, this reminds me of something like this. It makes sense because we have worked with these kind of ingredients. So that's been rather exploratory and fun. Traveling and cooking is always fun that way.
So, Pranshu, do you also, when you're perfecting your recipes, are you also into documentations to get the exactitude? Because you're also doing lots of things now where uh, you're taking it, you've kind of building scale and you're looking to sort of build that without, I guess, compromising on some of the core things like the ingredients, the way you source them, uh, how you kind of bring the whole waste sustainability angle. So I'm just curious, how, in your mind, what does scale look like and what does success look like with respect to soul with the soul to Pranshu?
So I have started documenting a lot of my recipes, especially when they are recipes that I am regularly selling. If it is a product that I am proud of, after I've come to a point where I'm comfortable with it, I think there's a set measurements. Like for my chili oil, I know exactly amount of chilies and in what combination they need to go.
Oh, your
And
chili oil is to die for. I know that.
thank you
Oh,
so much.
amazing. Yeah.
So there's always like set specifications of how I want to be doing this, and scaling has naturally happened, and I think I want to scale this a lot further than where it is right now. The first time I made chili oil was around 500 ml, and I think the last batch of chili oil I made was around 19-20 liters, which is already a huge jump, and it's been going really well that way. But I think the scaling is coming at this point of time where I want to standardize some of my recipes for sure. I think the granola making process is a fairly simple process. Once I have my caramel ready, being able to use that to mix it up and bake a batch of granola becomes very easy later on. I also do these chili cheesy makhanas, which you've had,
Oh,
the makhana popcorns, and they're a fun thing. I have had this hopeful, ideal dream maybe where you could have this sitting at a movie theater as a popcorn dispenser, or you could have it as a vending machine where you could choose from 0 to 100% the amount of spicy and cheesiness you want your makhanas to
yeah.
be, and it would accordingly proportion out and just mix it in a tumbler of sorts with a motor and then release it into your container. That would be an ideal like integration of movie culture, arts and science together over here, along with like healthy nutritious popcorn instead of popcorn really that doesn't get stuck inside your teeth also, by the way.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
so that
Yeah.
would ideally be like some ways that I would like to grow. Apart from that, as you've mentioned, like exploring flavors is something that brings me a lot of satisfaction. I have always, until for a while, I had a romanticized idea that I'd want to have a fully functional cafe, until I realized how much of a step that is in terms of a business aspect of it all as well. I am now looking at maybe having like a very small kitchen studio of sorts, looking at Bangalore and Mumbai, where I could maybe set up. And I'm also like, I have a constant recording happening so I can record and document the way I'm cooking different things, but exploring at the same time. I've been making a lot of ice cream of late, and it's been really fun selling ice cream and creating different flavors. We're currently doing 6 flavors of ice cream: dark chocolate, salted caramel, peanut butter, cappuccino, jam and jelly, malai coconut, and a plain peanut butter. And it started with just a dark chocolate, and that's only like less than a year ago. Just expanding to different flavors where I'm comfortable selling 6 different flavors feels like a nice growth in itself. But now growing that quantity is the next step. I have
Yeah.
finally got my hands on an ice cream maker. Until now, I was doing the whole blender ice process, and my consistency has been similar and just gotten a bit better with the ice cream maker now, because I used to still make it a lot more tediously earlier. My time has gone down a lot more though now, which is great. So scaling is hopefully going in a very convenient and a continuous process where I'm able to put myself out there to a lot more people. With this brand in specific, until now, I've not had a physical storefront of sorts. So it's been people who know about it and people who are looking at it, especially at pop-ups when I do them. But with those, I think the thing that's helped me grow sooner and faster than I think it would, because last year June is when I did my first event, and I was freaking out. I didn't think this was a potential business opportunity. At that time, I did this as a I'm not really doing much. I've also had a bad knee, so this was when I just recovered from my leg issue and I had started being comfortable standing and walking a lot more. Where friends really were like, you should try doing this if you feel like, And I was like, okay, let me give it one go. And that was like that was supposed to be a sole single event.
Wow.
And we printed things for it, but it's just grown since then. And it's mostly been the feedback that people have given me once they try my food. And that, as I said again, like the core of it is being able to see how people react when they have food, because like for me aesthetics is important in a
Mm.
different way, but I think food is a very kinesthetic pleasure, and
Yeah.
that comes to the core of it. And when I say kinesthetic specifically, mostly because of healing with food
Yeah.
and how it feels within your body. And I've had like, again, because of my unhealthy habits, I've had a whole experience of realizing how the food tastes and feels within my body, to the point where I can eat something. If I eat something random today, tomorrow I'll know if I have an issue with that. I will
Mm.
know what it's causing me. Sometimes it takes about an hour. Now that I'm vegan, there are times where I've had by mistake somebody's fed me dairy, and within 10 minutes I can tell them there's dairy inside of it with like absolute certainty, because I can feel it inside my body and I know how it feels when a certain thing is trying to be processed within your body as well. And it's a good ability to understand, and like it's a different form of intelligence, as we were talking about. It comes back to all of that. I feel it with my legs and muscles and tissues as well, especially because I've done rigorous amounts of physiotherapy for for my knee, where I'm able to rely on my muscles and I know what contract and atrophied muscles do feel like. Sometimes I'm able to feel my muscles being a bit more sore if I eat certain like acidic meals a lot more, or things that have sat out for a longer time. I feel that in my body, and these are like smaller signs and tells of just like the kinesthetic feeling, the entire internal feeling of how food correlates to everything that you do. My energy levels are it's I find it difficult to understand how sometimes people are able to exist around me with the amount of energy I have. It'll be 3 a.m. at night, and I would have been up for almost 16 hours, and I'm still willing to maybe like go for a walk, cycle. I have cycled back from Marine Drive to Goregaon at once around 3:34 a.m. after having a long full day. The energy levels stay consistent, stay really fresh, and it's been great that way.
Pranshu, you are a researcher at heart. You have been a data scientist. Who are the people who love you and keep wanting to buy Soul with the Soul, like repeatedly? What's the customer that you seem to attract and retain? If you can tell us a little.
There are a few types of customers. I think first and foremost, so like my products range from like really fun snacks, which mostly sees a regular customer base of similar age crowd as me, people who want to sit and snack on things while they're working, and they usually sit and work on a laptop. So they want to keep snacking on something that's fun, but also something that they can just like take a break from if they need to. But apart from that, my customer base, the regularity of it is uh, mostly people who are looking for a meal that's good for them, but also is tasty. Like I can't emphasize this enough. I've number of people who have had my food and told me that they feel great and not guilty after eating their meals. And I think that's like a core center of reaction that I get from most people. A lot of people who didn't know they were dairy, they had issues with dairy specifically, have been ordering my ice cream very frequently. Because the people who enjoy ice cream, but after eating ice cream from the market, which usually contains dairy or eggs, they don't feel as good. And because we don't really have a lot of tests within our country to check for dairy allergies specifically, and almost most of us are allergic to dairy after a certain age, after the age of around, like, I think it's around 5 or 6 years, there's a certain gland that stops producing enzymes that are supposed to digest dairy within our body. And most of us then develop allergies to dairy, but very small, medium issue allergies. Like for me, it was psoriasis.
Oh,
Until 2018, I had psoriasis all over my arms, inside my ears, and on my scalp. And I've met a lot of doctors for this, and most of them just said this is an SOS thing for which you need to keep applying ointments and take care of your body. And since I've cut out dairy from my life, my psoriasis has almost disappeared. I
wow.
have one rough patch over here on my left elbow, and that is mostly because probably while working out, always getting it on the
Contact.
scale.
Yeah.
Yeah. But apart from that, my psoriasis has disappeared from almost every brain cells. Another issue I had was a migraine attack. Again, something that I've been
Mm.
medically treated for since 2005. Met a lot of doctors, got allergy tests done earlier as well, which showed dairy allergy back then as well, but never cut it out completely from my system. But being able to actually see, feel, believe, and witness the results of these kind of like modifications to my diet and my lifestyle has been really good, and helped me has helped me be a little bit more confident when I sell this, with a certain confidence of telling, okay, this does create an effect in people. And more and more, I'm seeing the people who are rather than just customers. I also like working with a lot of people, and a lot of my friends have started to work with me. The people I end up working with a lot more, I notice even they are in the midst of or trying to figure healthier ways of developing their lifestyle with food, with
Mm.
work, etc. I think it comes from an overall healing core of sorts.
Yes.
And I think
Yes.
that really ties in with the brand, that ties in with my core beliefs of sustainability, reducing my packaging, reducing my waste as well. So it comes a full circle of sorts in a way.
Yeah. Yeah. So prana really is energy, pran, soul, energy, and I think what we're hearing from Pranshu, which is the ansh of pran.
Wow.
I'm not going the soul way. I'm not going the, the shoe way or the travel way. But I'm really sort of trying to make this more gestalt for all of us. So,
Indeed.
Pranshu, anything that you want our viewers to remember, like two or three things that you want to leave as a takeaway for them, to relook and awaken to a new lifestyle and make smart choices, and that's something that we can't talk enough of. So maybe you just want to leave them with some thoughts.
Yeah, of course. I mean, want to answer that question, but before directly answering that question, I think the idea of going vegan is something that is pushed so heavily in not healthy ways by a lot of people, which is slightly challenging for a lot of people to navigate. And we've sort of talked about like how veganism has a bad rep and marketability in the market as well. And I think that comes from the way people talk about it. And there's, like I said, for me, watching the documentary Eating Animals was something that really changed the way I see things. And I think there's an entire ignorant, blissful way that we are conditioned to living life. And I think it comes from just being comfortable. And it's not a difficult choice. It just comes from the way we're conditioned to live and do our things, and it's harder to step out of the way and do something. I think, which is why I think the first step and like one of the most important things is to just do your research. I think for me, being able to create a meal and lose all of that weight without having issues, being able to sustain a lower weight, for me to then witness health benefits, etc., was purely down to trying to do my own research and trying to create my own diet. I think when I went on that weight loss transition and was also going vegan at that point of time, I spent a lot of time just studying nutrition as much as I could and doing whatever I could to balance out my diets. I knew I was creating an energy morph of sorts where I was living on lesser energy, but that was something I needed at that point of time. But like the most crucial part is just exploring, researching, and being open to new experiences. A lot of times I hear something like, and this is a very common response when somebody has vegan food for the first time: oh, that does not taste vegan. And that's a very funny thing to listen to. And I often, like earlier, I just sit quiet through it, but now I often go like, what do you mean does not taste vegan? What is a vegan food supposed to taste like? And most people do not really have a response to that because they don't really know what vegan food is supposed to taste like. There's a preconditioned bias against things that you don't want to appeal towards, really. Food is food. Vegan food could be your dal khichdi. Vegan food is your vada pav that you have on the road at times. Vegan food is samosa. Like this entire country loves samosas. Vegan food is all of these things, right? But for some reason, we want to have these biases, which is why it's important to just like recondition, open yourself to your own biases and just try things without thinking about it once in a while. And I think that really allows you to explore and understand everything. And I think with something like food, I have a bad habit of psychoanalyzing every bite. But I think when you do that, you open up yourself to like not letting your preconditioned uh, methods of being able to think about the food, but just how it tastes. Just yesterday, I was out with my friends and we ordered, I'm not going to name the place, but we ordered a sea salt dark chocolate brownie at the place we were seated at. It was vegan. And before I was ordering it, I said, I'm not so sure about ordering this because I've had their other vegan dessert as well. And I said that was a solid 5.45 out of 10. And my friend just laughed it off. He's like, I don't want these numbers. I'm like, it's a way to tell you that it was not, there's a range within it. But then we had it and I gave it a solid 7.37, I think. It was not that bad. But then right after that, my friend also had it and they loved it as well. And then I said, the only issue with this is the cocoa powder hasn't been mixed thoroughly or homogeneously. I can feel that the mixing of the cocoa powder was not done perfectly. They had it and they're like, yeah, this is good, but that is exactly the problem with it. So when you're opening yourself to everything else, it's not about whether the food is vegan or cooked in fat or butter. Food is food. Every meal that you have can be made the best of what it should be if it's done in the right process. Like the same brownie with the same ingredients can be done better or worse. So it's about taking that bite and realizing why this is a probably something that is as good as it can be or not, and which part of the process is it lacking in that can be made better. I think that really opens up the way to look at food as food in general. But yes, be open,
Awesome.
I guess.
Be open, don't be afraid, do your own research, go out there and really look at what it is that you're consuming and keep
Yeah,
informing yourself. Don't
yeah,
don't shut your mind. I guess all of those things.
those
Pranshu
things.
Poddar, it was so awesome. We've come to the close of this conversation, but we can go on and on and on. And I just feel I've unpacked only one of those 9 layers of the polymath who doesn't believe he's a polymath, but he's a very smart guy. So, wish you all the best and,
Thank you.
just keep rocking it. We're going to be following you and your journey very closely. And hopefully we'll have another conversation with you in a couple of years and with maybe more stories. So
Yes,
cheers to that.
would love to. Yeah, I sorry, I know we're closing, but I have one last thing I remember that I wanted to say. Maybe there's this very famous quote by Anna Lappe who says, every time you spend your money, you cast a vote on the kind of world you want to live in. And I think that's also something I want to leave everyone with. This is a quote I really love, and it may tie into my food business, it may not, but it's just a quote I want to leave everyone with.
Yeah, just tell us, say it again. I think it's an important quote. I think it's a
Yeah,
very, very, very important quote. Please repeat yourself, Pranshu, just in case
yeah.
somebody didn't.
Analope, yeah. Every time you spend your money, you cast a vote on the kind of world you want to live in. And I personally have changed my lifestyle around this quote. I stopped buying brands I don't believe in. I stopped going to food joints that are run by organizations I don't believe in. I started studying the politics and the belief systems of a lot of organizations. I stopped doing fast fashion after going across this code. But this is something that has changed the way I look at how I want to live my life. And that's why I wanted to leave everyone with this quote.
Thank you and much respect.
Thank you.